In the south of Germany lies the state of Bavaria, whose history reaches back to the 6th century Common Era. The Bavarian landscape is full of lush, beautiful scenery, rolling hills, and impenetrable fortresses. Along the banks of the Danube River is the city of Ingolstadt, well known for being the setting to Mary Shelley's novel Frankenstein. Yet, it is also known as the backdrop for a much darker narrative about the world's most controversial secret society, the Illuminati. The true story of the Illuminati is not a horror story, nor is it a conspiratorial account of nefarious intentions set on enslaving humanity or bringing forth the end of days. This is a rare and unvarnished insight into the mysteries of the Order and their secret rituals. For the true story of the Illuminati is a very human one. It is a story of rebellion, a story of love, and a story of great loss.
The Illuminati was founded in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt and 6 of his pupils. Weishaupt's main objective for creating the Illuminati was to make mankind happy by instilling a strict moral regimen through a series of initiatic degrees that were patterned after Freemasonry to teach morality, virtue, and more importantly, self-actualization and self-accountability to govern oneself and thereby making him free.
He created this society to bring about almost revolutionary change to Bavaria and possibly to Germany or Europe as a whole. Weishaupt got this idea of forming a secret society by one of his students, who was not a Bavarian. He came from central Germany. He showed him a number of books, which Weishaupt then devoured. They were Masonic books as well as Rosicrucian tracts. And Weishaupt developed this idea that by forming a secret society, he could actually accelerate the pace of the Enlightenment.
During this time of the Enlightenment, though, this is also the age of the secret society. And how can you think of Age of Enlightenment, new science, rational thought, and secret societies? What you have to think about is that the idea of initiation, the process of gathering knowledge that has been lost or has been unknown to you, was equated with enlightenment. Now, this entire time they're fascinated with the ancient world, neoclassicism, etc., Greece, Rome, and then also Egypt. And so this idea of ancient mysteries practiced by the ancients is being revived, revolutionizing our thought. These secret societies saw themselves as inheritors of these ancient mysteries.
In 1748, Johann Adam Weishaupt was born in the Bavarian city of Ingolstadt. By the time Weishaupt was only 5 years old, both his mother and father would be dead. After the tragic death of his parents, however, fate stepped in. Weishaupt's godfather, the Baron von Eichstätt, took over the care for Weishaupt. It would be Baron von Eichstätt who would plant the seeds of the forbidden fruit of knowledge in Weishaupt, which would end up blossoming into the infamous Order of the Illuminati. The Baron von Eichstätt was the book censor for Ingolstadt University, a Jesuit institution.
So all of the books you're not supposed to read, Adam Weishaupt, as a young man, reads all of these books, and he starts to understand that all these popular philosophical works, these aren't inherently bad, but what it does is it minimizes the role of the state and also the role of the church in society. And what ends up happening is that, he reads these pieces and he's conversing with some of his students, and he gets the idea as early as 1774. There's a draft paper that's in Berlin that's called A School for Humanity, and it kind of is the little proto thing for the Illuminati. It was necessary to do this behind closed doors because the Jesuits had a monopoly on the university system.
The Jesuits were formed essentially as the Pope's army. The Jesuits had been very influential in education in general and at the university. Weishaupt was definitely on the side of the Enlightenment and very much opposed to the ongoing influence of the Jesuit order at the University of Ingolstadt.
It's because the church during the 18th century held a huge copyright on free thought. During the Age of Enlightenment, this started to come apart, and so there's friction. This was a period where there was heavy censorship on works. The Catholic Church owned most land, knowledge, your soul even. And so this concept, a dual concept of secret, not secret, that's where it came into being.
Over the years, Adam Weishaupt's mind opened up to the writings of various philosophers from the 18th century Enlightenment era at its zenith. In 1768, by the age of 20, Weishaupt received his doctorate degree in law, indicating that he had a very bright mind. From 1772 to 1773, several important events occurred in Weishaupt's life. He obtained a professorship of law at Ingolstadt University and married his first wife, Afra Sausenhofer, against the wishes of his godfather. During this time, Pope Clement XIV disbanded the Jesuit order. This opened up an opportunity for non-Jesuits to teach canon law at Ingolstadt University. Weishaupt secured this new appointment and became the first non-Jesuit in the history of Ingolstadt University to teach canon law. As Weishaupt's career progressed, his liberal views became apparent to his Jesuit colleagues, and he became their #1 enemy on campus. While the Jesuits conspired against Weishaupt, he used his intellect to fight back.
The concept itself was more about having a new order of the ages so that humanity could complement each other and work to a greater good. To improve yourself so that you can be of service and you can also teach and instruct and be an example for someone else.
He drafted a paper titled A School for Humanity, a philosophical doctrine which outlined a preliminary structure for his own secret society. Weishaupt eventually discarded his idea for a school of humanity, and on May 1st, 1776, wrote the statutes for an entirely new secret society called the Perfectibilists.
That means believers in the continuous perfection of mankind, believers and fighters for the improvement of mankind and its condition.
He writes about why one should have such an order and also whether such an order would be dangerous to society. These are things he openly addresses. There's a Machiavellian undertone in all this about absolute power he could have over people who do not even realize that it is him having this power over them.
When you have this goal, you become dangerous. In a similar manner, other secret societies have had similar goals and have therefore become dangerous. You have to understand that during this time in Bavaria, it was a Catholic country, that many people not only had no ownership of their mind, they didn't even own their own land. So there was no movement for the human soul to express themselves.
They don't really realize to what degree their lives are monitored in the ideal society he's going to erect. He speaks of a society in which everyone is observed. I think these ideas are absolutely common ground at that time, but they have the clear notion that humanity might be able to develop mentally, to develop into something higher, and that should be attractive for practically everyone to reach that perfection. It's more in a way that the old idea of medieval philosophers that perfection comes after the world is destroyed in a divine revolution, that this idea is just dropped. You can get this perfection on earth, and you can
in the county.
They were trying to explain in the best way they knew how their own agenda or their own curriculum for freeing the human mind and therefore the spirit through initiation. It seems very strange that almost not only anti-Catholic, but anti-spiritual organization would use ritualistic practices and symbols. But this is what they did at the time. We have to understand that the Age of Enlightenment, it wasn't necessarily all rationalists and 1 + 1 = 2. Not only was there the counter-enlightenment, but there were those who did believe in religion. There were those that did believe in spiritualism, or rather an esoteric doctrine.
The Illuminati degrees were broken up into 3 classes: the Minerval class, the Freemasonic class, and the Mysteries class, comprising a system of 12 degrees. Within the Minerval class, of the Illuminati were 3 degrees: Novitiate, Minerval, and Illuminatus Minor, or Minervalis Illuminatus. The Minerval class introduced the founding principles of the order to the candidates. The term Minerval was derived from Minerva, the Greek goddess of wisdom, often depicted with a shield emblazoned with the head of Medusa.
The first degree of the Illuminati is the novice degree. The thing is, though, it's not much of a degree at all because there's no formal initiation ceremony. And what it consists of is a young man, somewhere between the ages of 14 and 16. He's brought in by his initiator, and he only knows this one person, so that way if he decides to quit or demit, he can't give the order up because he doesn't know the people's actual names or anyone else in the order but his initiator.
Novitiates were required to maintain a journal called a quibus licet, which was an exact record of all correspondence between the new member and the Illuminati. The candidates were taught an initial cipher to conceal names and locations of the order. The Zoroastrian years and Persian months were also used in correspondence to add further complexity and security in their private communications. In 1777, Weishaupt became a member of the Freemasons. He joined the Zur Behutsamkeit Lodge, or the Lodge of Caution. Weishaupt only reached the degree of Fellowcraft before he decided not to continue in Freemasonry. But his cunning mind spotted an opportunity to grow his own order by infiltrating Masonic lodges and recruiting their members. The Illuminati did this by chartering their own Masonic lodge, St. Theodore of Good Counsel.
They begin to infiltrate Freemasonry. They create a lodge, Theodor zum Guten Rate, and that is opening the doors into Freemasonry. Now they are accepted, and it's not clear that they are more than that, and that they have some hidden ambition in that lodge.
The plan was a success, and the order of the Illuminati expanded.
This organization, that is Freemasonry, is a scaffold, a structure whereby you can hang your own thoughts, your ideals, and even some of the higher degrees of Freemasonry have that in mind.
As the Illuminati continued to grow and evolve, Weishaupt was struck with a devastating blow in his personal life. His beloved wife, Afra Sausenhofer, died.
Afra Sausenhofer was Adam Weishaupt's first wife, and she gets sick and is dying right around 1780, and Adam Weishaupt is totally distraught.
And that was a very heavy blow to Weishaupt and his only surviving daughter.
Yet fate stepped in once again for Weishaupt. In May of 1780, Baron Adolf von Knigge, a well-known Freemason and master ritualist, joined the Illuminati, which altered both Weishaupt's life and the destiny of the order forever.
Knigge was ambitious. He must have been, in his way, charismatic, and he is highly engaged in the lodges in Germany, and he's a good networker, and he is interested in all these secret observations.
Knigge quickly became a part of the Illuminati's inner circle, and with Weishaupt's permission, began revising the second degree of the order, the Minerval degree. In the Minerval degree, the candidate was placed in a dark room by an officer known as his godfather, who told him, "Here you may reconsider once more whether or not you remain resolved to join the order. If the candidate wished to proceed, his hat and sword
The candidate is taken from the dark chamber and brought into the Minerval assembly room before the magistrate or the officers.
he was asked, "What is your desire? Why do you come here?" After the initiate answered, he then pledged eternal silence, secrecy, and obedience to the Illuminati. The Minerval modes of recognition were then taught to him. Ekes este Babaloi was given to him in charge as such as the secret passphrase of a Minerval, which was derived from the ancient Greeks, meaning away, away, ye profane. The secret grip was demonstrated by the joining of two hands and then tapping the hand of the other member with the pinky finger 3 times. The secret sign, called the blinding sign, was illustrated by a salute that shadowed or blinded the eyes. The candidate was then awarded with a Minerval jewel.
The gradual advancement of the person getting the knowledge.
It's important to make the distinction between a secret society and a society with secrets. The Masons are still a society with secrets, whereas the Illuminati was a secret society. The difference being a Mason can say, I'm a Freemason, they just can't discuss what it is that they do in the ritual of Freemasonry. The Illuminati cannot mention membership at all. That's a secret society. So you take, for example, the Masons, what's a different secret society would be like the Mafia. I can wear a Masonic ring and tell you that I'm a Freemason. You'll never see me wear a Mafia ring, and so you'll never know whether I'm in or not.
The Illuminatus Minor, or Minervalis Illuminatus degree, was a ritual used primarily for inculcating into the mind of the candidate the various symbols found within the Minerval class of degrees. He was told, now take a look at the pyramid. This is the symbol of our illustrious order, which takes large steps closer toward its goal, only if the members join forces, working toward its attainment for the honor of the supreme architect and the happiness of the world, which is why you find written here the letters D, P, Deo Proximo, meaning close to God. The candidate was also instructed on the esotericism of the god-headed bird holding the Gorgon's head. Overall, this symbol was indicative of gaining wisdom through various trials in life and constant study. After the symbolic instruction occurred, the candidate was taught the secret modes of recognition. The secret passphrase was Cave ne cadas, Latin for beware of falling from your high place. The secret grip was demonstrated by two hands conjoined and the thumb tapping the other hand 3 times. The secret sign was the thumb and index finger spread outward.
What this degree is are the leadership of the Minerval Assembly. Now, for someone to get to this period, they already had to have been made a Master Mason. And that's important because if you're going to advance at all in the Illuminati, you have to be a Freemason. And it was so that way they could have that seamless connection between the Secret School of Wisdom and the Masonic degrees.
Lower degrees are mostly about character formation, knowing thyself, and also knowing the others, getting to know the characters of the persons you communicate with, your friends and acquaintances. Particularly impressive is the incredibly long list of questions by which individual candidates' character was to be assessed and vetted so thoroughly that it was completely unrealistic to do this. It's pages and pages of very intricate and detailed questions concerning the character of each individual candidate. So that's a very important element of the lower degrees.
While Kaniga strived to bring the order to a new level of ritual excellence, a second enemy of the Illuminati arose. A Rosicrucian group calling themselves the Golden and Rosy Cross. They were also a secret society. However, the philosophy of these Rosicrucians couldn't be more disparate than the Illuminati. They believed in the ultimate goal of the universal reformation of mankind through the practice of studying and mastering the metaphysical laws of the universe. By combining the ritual practices of alchemy, Hermeticism, Kabbalah, and Christian Gnosticism.
The Rosicrucians had a very strange set of ideas. They believed in a very mystical approach to Christianity, a very direct communication with God. They encouraged their members to lead a devout life.
Several harsh written exchanges were made between the Golden and Rosy Cross and the Illuminati. At the core of their war was the battle for recruiting members. As the war waged on, Weishaupt encountered yet another major obstacle in his personal life. He had impregnated his deceased wife's sister, Anna Sausenhofer, out of wedlock.
He starts consulting with some of the members of the Illuminati, looking for recipes to cause like an abortion or a miscarriage or something of this nature. And it never ends up happening.
As a result of this controversy, Weishaupt beckoned his friend and fellow member of the Illuminati, Baron Thomas de Bassus, to let Anna go into hiding at Sandersdorf Castle.
He eventually married her, but that was a long struggle for him because according to the rules of the Catholic Church, you had to get a special dispensation from the Pope himself to be able to marry a sibling of your first partner.
During this time, Kaniga began adapting the Masonic degrees of the rite of the strict observance into the Illuminati and aggressively set into motion his plan for infiltrating Freemasonry.
Knigge's infiltration is strategic. He is getting into lodges, asking high-profile members to join, and for them it is in a way attractive, as they are building a kind of internal superstructure in these lodges. You can be a normal Freemason and you can be a special Freemason in a hidden congregation, and that's extremely interesting.
Knigge believed that incorporating a class of Freemasonic degrees into the Order of the Illuminati would allow Freemasons to feel more comfortable in transitioning into an alternative system.
The main reason why they wanted to do this is because they had no money at all. And so their thought was, well, if we graft ourselves onto the Masonic system, we can have a fertile ground for recruiting members, but more importantly, we can have their money.
And Weishaupt, albeit reluctantly, agreed.
Although Knigge revised various aspects of the Masonic rituals, the themes of mortality and reflection remained the same.
The Masonic system within the Illuminati system was not very well harmonized with the rest of the degrees. They didn't really teach what Weishaupt was most concerned with. They were mostly in line with existing Masonic degrees, which were generally practiced at the time.
In the fourth degree, entered apprentice, the candidate was led into the lodge room blindfolded and was received upon the point of a sword, which was to teach him that his progression through the Illuminati order would now take a much more serious tone, and dire consequences would await him should he betray the order. He was then led around the lodge room in a mysterious journey with his eyes veiled in darkness. It was only by the help of his guide that he was able to successfully navigate the dangers that surrounded his soul. As the master of ceremonies conducted the candidate toward the east, he was caused to kneel in front of the worshipful master. A compass was placed upon his naked left breast, which was to teach him to circumscribe his desires and keep the passions of his heart within due bounds. The worshipful master then used his gavel to strike the compass 3 times, piercing the skin of the candidate. This was to teach him to always conceal the secrets of the Illuminati within his bleeding heart. He was then prepared to receive the light of the entered apprentice. As his blindfold was removed, the worshipful master told him, "Behold, the host of men, armed and ready to avenge perjury. Should you become a traitor, none of your steps on the face of this earth shall be safe."
There's an overlap between the Illuminati and the Masons. The Masons had 14 United States presidents who were Freemasons, and because there's always been that overlap between the Illuminati and the Masons, it's always been said that the country was run by the Illuminati. Really, the founding fathers were Freemasons, including 9 of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, including the most famous one, John Hancock. A lot of the founding principles were based on Masonic principles. There were 13 colonies. Some say that that was intentional. There's been claims that Bermuda had requested colonization as part of and to be the 14th, that they were denied because they wanted to keep it at that 13. So believe what you will with that. But it's also understood that Masonic lodges that overlap different borders at the time were the reason why there was trust built between those colonies, which in essence united the states of America. The Masons had more of an influence, more so than what people think is really the background work of the Illuminati.
A lot of people have this wrong notion that the Illuminati influenced the American Revolution. Actually, it was quite the opposite. They wrote John Adams and Benjamin Franklin as they were serving as envoys in Paris, and they were looking to establish a colony in the United States called Elysium. It was showing that they philosophically associated with the liberties the early American Republic was after as heaven, and they had similar ambitions and aspirations. The trouble was, though, is that they picked a place on the Savannah River, and in the Battle of Charleston, the entire southern colonies were cut off, and so it made this plan untenable. Not to mention the fact that they didn't have any money, so it was really more of a pipe dream than anything.
Next in the Illuminati's Freemasonic class came the Fellowcraft degree, where the candidate again made a mysterious journey toward 7 steps, which he would symbolically climb toward the middle chamber of the Temple of Light. Once inside the middle chamber, he was taught to continue to educate himself through
Actually may not be bad, just as all things that are pleasant may not be good. And it teaches him to shift his perspective from that of a local member of society to shift one's view and perspective to a more global perspective.
One might think that that's kind of an exciting system, that you have a group of enlightened masters guiding humanity to its highest reaches through thick and thin, better or for worse.
Kaniga introduced 2 high degrees from the strict observance into the Illuminati's Freemasonic class, the Illuminatus Major, or Scottish Novice degree, and the Illuminatus Dirigens, or Scottish Knight degree.
The strict observance are basically strictly observing their orders from unknown superiors, and they're the guys that have the whole Templar mythos into Freemasonry, that Freemasonry is directly descended from the Knights Templar, which is a fine story and everything, but it's not at all true. It was just a mythology.
You bridged into a higher order, which was one of knighthood. And this wasn't just from craftsman to knighthood. This was a transition to a spiritual order.
Knigge takes the 2 Scottish degrees from the strict observance and he tries to augment them and put them into the system. So what ends up happening is that the Illuminati, their Scottish novice degree, is really a play like on the Scots master degree that's in the strict observance system.
This is where the themes of the Freemasonic class within the Illuminati order transitioned from mortality to inner reflection. The worshipful master handed the candidate a mirror and told him, "The order gives you this sharpness of sight, this degree of enlightenment. Behold the image in this mirror. It is your own. Self-knowledge is the magical looking glass through which you may read the souls of others. The path to the hearts of other men begins with your own heart. Therefore, begin with yourself. Do you believe that inwardly you are as you appear on the outside? Study your physiognomy often, daily, hourly. You will constantly discover new features, and you will learn to judge others by these features. What a beautiful and what an ugly thing it can so very often be to behold the unconcealed human heart. Nosce te ipsum. The secret sign of the Illuminatus Major or Scottish Novice was the index finger of the right hand pointing toward the heart, and the index finger of the left hand pointing upward toward the moon. This sign alluded to a passage in the degree about how the initiates of this degree would only meet under the light of the moon in its first quarter, where the writing stated, "Only he who sees with the eyes of Minerva's bird, laboring under the protection of this benevolent orb, will surely find them."
This rite, from the first degree up to its last, was controlled by unknown superiors, secret chiefs, and this is something that pops up in Illuminati conspiracy. Again, this controlling secret group that controls all of humankind or this particular order. This was a particularly popular theme at this period, and it exists later on. You have the secret chiefs in Theosophy and also references to it in the OTO.
And there was also the hidden assumption that if anyone has any secret knowledge about alchemy and magic, then it must be people of social standing. So there is some idea behind it in the beginning that you might use the input gate for all these secret branches of knowledge. Whether they are in a way magic, I don't really get this.
The 8th and final degree of the Illuminati's free Masonic class was the Illuminatus Dirigens, or Scottish Knight, where the real deviousness of Adam Weishaupt began to surface. The legend of this degree was based in part on the Battle of Bannockburn in Scotland during the year 1314, where the exiled Knights Templar fought alongside Robert the Bruce. However, instead of instilling the ideals of knightly virtue into the new Illuminatus initiates of this degree, Weishaupt focused on using this degree to create a secret network of spies to gather information on Freemasonic lodges and use their influence to recruit more members into the order of the Illuminati. Becoming an Illuminatus dirigens, or Scottish Knight, of the order meant that in addition to being responsible for directing the Freemasonic degrees within the Illuminati, the member was also charged with spying on Freemasonic lodges and influencing decision-makers within these circles to join the Illuminati. It was actually written in the statutes of this degree that the Illuminati believed themselves to be the secret superiors of Freemasonry. The candidate was told, "Happy are you who may cross this hallowed threshold. We welcome you in our midst. Ever blessed the day we opened unto you the portal only the wise and honorable man may enter. Here you see a part of the unknown Holy Legion, bound with inseverable bonds, to fight for mankind. If you wish to make yourself worthy of guarding the inner sanctum, your heart must be clean and pure, your spirit ablaze with divine fire for the dignity of your nature." The sign of this degree was made forming the shape of an X, which alluded to St. Andrew's Cross, the patron saint of the Scottish degrees. The password was Jehovah.
There was this unique opportunity for the Illuminati to take over lodges which were becoming disaffected with the strict observance, which by then was falling apart. This was a major component in the Illuminati order's success.
I would love to see how many members per lodge they get, because they seem to be sweeping higher members of lodges, or more interesting members of lodges, at one group into the order. They need this large input, because if you create a Minerval church anywhere, you need at least 5-6 members to have a starting point.
As a result of Kniga's recruiting efforts, a multitude of Freemasons joined the Illuminati.
They managed, with Kniga's help, to convert a lot of individual Freemasons and whole lodges almost to the Illuminati order.
The Illuminati got a strict focus on actually getting involved in intellectual work, on improving your character, on improving society, via improving your character, offering their own option of a high-grade system right at the point of time when high-grade Freemasonry in Germany is in crisis.
In 1782, the Congress of Wilhelmsbad was called to order. Many leading Masonic figures attended. Representing the Illuminati was Kniga. Two major turning points at the Congress of Wilhelmsbad tipped the scales in favor of the Illuminati. The first was that the rite of the strict observance officially denounced their Templar origins, resulting in a major rift in the order. The second major turning point was that Johann Bode, a German translator and deputy Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Hamburg Freemasons, joined the Illuminati.
At the time when Bode comes into the game, he is actually strategically creating a province for himself. The idea is, once you have Bode in there, you can have the higher levels of aristocracy in this order, because he would be the person to get these top-level people from the different lodges and from other secret organizations into it.
Shortly after the recruitment of Bode, Kniga and Weishaupt commenced their work on what would be the final set of degrees for the Illuminati, the Mysteries class. The 9th degree, presbyter or priest, speculated on the purity of religion. The candidate was tempted with a crown, scepter, sword, gold, and priest's garments. The candidate was told to choose from these items. If he reached for anything other than the priest's garments, he was told, "Begone, unholy man." If he reached for the priest's garments, however, one called out to him, "Hail thee, noble man, peace be with you." The Holy Legion of Assistants shouted, "Hail and blessings to the kings and priests of the new union. Blessed be you, be illuminated, and go in peace."
The presbyter degree, it contained a peculiar theology, really, consisting of Weishaupt's ideas, but also of Knigge's ideas. That was probably the only degree where central ideas of both men really were joined together, which also caused some friction.
It's really Adam Weishaupt's take on Jean-Jacques Rousseau's discourse on the origin of human inequality. On the one side, Rousseau takes you up the hill that mankind starts in a primitive state and is enslaved by his needs, and Weishaupt takes you down the other side of the hill and shows you by curbing your needs, you obtain your original state of freedom.
The 10th degree, princeps or regent, discussed Weishaupt's view on society.
Up to this point, the candidate has submitted himself to very demanding obligations and monthly reports, the Quibus-Lichet reports. So when he is initiated as a regent, he's set free from all these obligations, and all the files the order has collected on him up to this point are returned back to the candidate. And the thinking is that he's so tightly bound to this system that obligations are no longer necessary for him to be a loyal and faithful member of the order.
In the ritual of this degree, bones and a crown laid out before the candidate was to teach him that whether the bones belonged to a king, a nobleman, or a beggar, all are the same at death. The initiate was told that slaves were not allowed and that he must profess his wish to be truly free from the chains that bound him to his state of slavery. Once the candidate was freed from the bondage of his restraints, he then entered a room where he observed a shepherd's crook, which denoted he was charged with leading others to freedom. He received a Roman cap of liberty in accordance with the ancient Roman tradition of when slaves from that era were literally set free by their masters. The crown set before him was to remind him that he should never desire to trade the Roman cap of liberty for the crown. Around this time, Knigge began to view Weishaupt as a hypocrite for preaching freedom and liberty through the Illuminati teachings, yet gave no real authority to Knigge to further develop his own ideas within the order. As a result, Knigge and Weishaupt had a falling out, and thus the rituals for the Docetists and Philosophi degrees were never finished. The 11th degree, Docetists, was the first of the greater mysteries and was considered highly heretical in the eyes of the Roman Catholic Church. A Docetist is one who believes that Christ's body was not human, but either a phantasm or a real but celestial substance, and that therefore his sufferings were only apparent.
The Docetist degree is where things start getting really interesting. In the correspondence between Knigge and Weishaupt, they talk about the need for creating a people's religion. And what this is that basically they're going to prove the existence of God and the immortality of the soul and do it through logical and secular reasoning.
The degree, I believe, can be related to Weishaupt's own biography and the fate that had befallen him in 1780 when his first wife died. He was arguing that death only meant ascending to a new level of existence and perception. And so eventually, in some kind of afterlife, everybody who had deceased and left the world of the mortals would probably be able to communicate with the other loved ones that had gone before him.
The Docetist degree, however, discussed the idea that God does not perceive man the same way human beings perceive mankind. Nor does God have a body and senses as we do, but is more of a divine mind, and therefore God perceives what happens to life as the effects of certain forces only observable to him. The writings in the Docetist degree conclude with the daring statement that says, "We turn God into a man and convert the infinite to the finite."
This is where the great mysteries come in, these ideas of the ancient mysteries, because this natural religion could not exist side by side with competing state gods who sought to control society. So the idea of the natural religion became part of a mystery which was to be practiced or worshiped in secret. This is the real basis for what we say is ancient mystery schools. They don't really exist in this form. The history of these ancient civilizations don't really have this concept.
The final degree of the Illuminati was the Philosophy degree. Like the preceding degree, it had no completed ritual. The former themes of restoring man to his natural state of liberty by curbing one's needs was intertwined with the concept that one must view the world from a broader perspective, that man only considers right from wrong, good and evil from their own personal perspectives, and that to understand these concepts more fully, one must assume an external point of view, to see the true cause and effect of actions, and that from this perspective, what is good might actually be bad, and what is wrong might actually be right.
This is where the political system of the Illuminati is trying to enact its political reforms are fully fleshed out.
It's a panorama of philosophy of history which centers on two ideas in particular. The correlation between population and the advancement of humanity.
This theme resonated with Weishaupt in Bavaria, given the rolling back of the Enlightenment by Charles Theodore and the control and censorship of academia by the Church. It is within this context that we see Weishaupt's motivation for creating the Illuminati and the religious and political solutions offered by his order were really one and the same. The solutions Weishaupt attempted to offer through his own philosophy were less relevant to others, and this was one of the primary reasons that the Illuminati failed. It was in a large sense one man working out his own issues and attempting to manifest his own utopian vision as reality.
Weishaupt was an ambitious man. He could also be quite ruthless and acerbic. He was not the greatest leader because he was always clashing with other people within the order. So he was not very good at coming to a joint decision with his closest collaborators.
In 1784, the Illuminati began to fall apart. Kaniga resigned from the order, causing a major setback. That same year, the most powerful enemy of the Illuminati fully surfaced. Charles Theodore, Elector of Bavaria.
Even though the Jesuits had lost their post, he puts the Jesuits back into place. And so it basically, just as the Enlightenment was coming into Bavaria, the rug gets snatched out from underneath them.
Between 1784 and 1787, Charles Theodore issued several edicts which would ban all secret societies in Bavaria and eventually issue a death penalty which would end the resistance on any remaining members of any secret society. He turned his focus ultimately on the Illuminati and especially Weishaupt, who lost his professorship from Ingolstadt University and was eventually exiled from Bavaria.
What's happening at the end of the order is, in a way, dark. Dark because we don't have a document that says that's now the end. Any such organization is doomed to fail. I see how the Illuminati fail in their practical work. They realize, no, it's not going to work any longer.
The last activities that we know of were in 1788, and there's no question that the Illuminati order actually was dissolved. It was not a big bang, it was a whimper at the end. It was just dissolving quietly in the center of, in central Germany. And Weishaupt wasn't able to continue at the helm of this organization.
With Weishaupt in exile, it was rumored that he became a heavy smoker and drinker. He struggled with money, even though he was receiving a monthly stipend, which led historians to believe that he developed a gambling addiction. Weishaupt spent the majority of his remaining years in the town of Gotha, where he died in 1830. Even though the majority of the world's leading Illuminati historians have found evidence that the order did in fact dissolve in the late 18th century, there are still those today who believe the Illuminati carries on in the shadows, controlling governments, world affairs, the banking system, and many other aspects of daily life. Perhaps the greatest achievement of the Illuminati is that the world still talks about them today.
I'm sure there are certain fraternities and certain groups that, I'm sure people would equate with the Illuminati, like the OTO or some other organization. I know that there's the Fraternitas Saturni, which is another group that maybe people associate with the Illuminati. But I just say they try to blend them all, from the Templars to the Knights of Malta to the Jesuits to I just go down the list of everyone that's Illuminati. And I have a feeling that I don't think we should mix the substance. I think that if there is an Illuminati, we need to know the true history of the Illuminati. And then from there, I think people will find it to be, oh, is that all it is?
Part of the Illuminati during that time, it definitely circulated and the idealism carried on. And so there's that idea that globalization and New World Order does exist with certain things that developed in today's day and age. I mean, we can call certain things like the United Nations or NATO a couple of Adam Weishaupt wins, if you want to call it that, because his idea was to globalize and get away from a nationalist viewpoint. There are dangers to globalization because you might hit absolute power, and then you'll have no watchers to oversee the watchers.
They were advocates for liberalism, republicanism, free thought, and secularism, and gender equality. So it had some effect in the popular culture. Now, that was back, when that society, worked, and that declined, and it met its own demise because of its own indiscretions. But it did maintain an aura of mystique to where at the beginning of last century it was taken up by some to describe intentions of groups and other societies that were taking their name to have that in their societies as a level of hierarchy, and because it had its own aura of mystique to where they used it to attract membership. And of course, it has taken a life of its own because a lot of people think that the Illuminati still exist and that they're an entity of, to themselves. And it is not my belief to the research that I have found. And a lot of people are intrigued by it. And a lot of people who really partake on the conspiracy theory make it as a given when it's actually unsubstantiated, that exists today.
The Illuminati is an organization, a secret organization that anymore is the catch-all for everything bad in the world anymore. I've done countless talk shows about the Illuminati, and I've had several people call my radio show claiming that they're part of the Illuminati or they've had some experience with the Illuminati, and I always shake my head and say, well, didn't you know the Illuminati disbanded like several hundred years ago? They say, well, there are secret organizations that have branched off. I kind of think that maybe, there are a few branches that have kind of went their various ways, but I think that right now, when you talk about the Illuminati, it becomes nothing more than a very safe, marketable boogeyman.
Some people actually believe in the idea that there is some kind of secret society called the Illuminati, which calls the shots even today, which controls international organizations and the way that the world is being run on a global scale. That, of course, is nonsense, but it's quite interesting in its own right. We have to be careful to distinguish between fact and fiction. And the way we do that is by studying the original documents, and there's actually a lot to be done on that front. We're very grateful that the Illuminati left behind a rich heritage of archival documents, and even though a lot was lost over the centuries, there's still a lot of material for us historians to analyze and to publish for the larger public to be acquainted with.
How can you substantiate there is this nefarious group that's still running the world? I just think that, especially